that apparent want of sort of intellectual weight, could still manage all these things. Maybe that would be a positive thing. Maybe that really proves that anyone can be president.
Of course it is, because...
Which is what we never let's forget. It's supposed to be, in this republic, possible for anybody to be the president. This may be the most exacting test of that proposition.
One thing that I think people often misunderstand, it was classic in Gore and Bush in that whole election, is that there is a difference between what you might call theoretical wisdom and practical wisdom. Christopher and I are both pretty smart people. We read, we're bookish. It's blah, blah, blah. So I think I'd be an absolutely terrible president of the United States. I can't run a whelk stall. Now, there are other... Stall? Well, a whelk stall, yeah, whatever.
It's a shellfish in English.
Is that an English expression? Yeah. Excuse me. There
it's an English seaside expression.
It's an English seaside expression.
Absolutely no idea what you're talking about.
Oh, well, I couldn't run anything very well. And when I was editor of the New Republic, quite frankly, I was a very bad manager of people. And but I can recognize those skills in other people, I think, and say, look, this is what matters in a president. He doesn't have to be reading Nietzsche every night, thank goodness. He doesn't have to be reading, Immanuel Kant every morning. He needs to have a sense of who he is, what he believes in, an ability to rally a team together to do a task, and he's done that. And also, I would say, the other slur on George W. Bush was that he couldn't speak a coherent sentence. His speeches, since he took office, from the inauguration on, from a speechwriting team that is among the best ever, have been really quite stunning. The September, I think the 20th speech and this last State of the Union were really among the most impressive pieces of oratory in recent presidential memory.
Chicago Democratic Line, good morning.
Yes, good morning, Brian. Good morning, gentlemen.
Morning.
Brian, I actually liked the second phrase of your question about the greatest country.
Mm-hmm.
The reason being is because, and this is a comment for the gentleman, to please think about time and space. I'm pretty sure that countries prior to us, Roman Empire, Germany, other great countries, when I say great countries, I mean in time and space, they too thought that they were the greatest country on earth. So please compare those particular countries, and certainly England, Britain, at that time and space, they too thought that they were the greatest.
Thanks. Mr. Hitchens.
Well, look, we're obviously not, we haven't exhausted this topic, clearly. Why not think of America as a lucky country, for example? It has oceans on either side of it. It has reasonably tranquil neighbors on the land. It managed to buy Louisiana for a knockdown price, and Louisiana meant, the purchase meant this whole central sway of the United States. It managed to buy Alaska at a fire sale price from the Tsar. It doesn't get any better than this. And that's why I quite like the New York version of the national boast, which is this a great country or what? Now, I think that there needs anyone who just goes around saying unironically, well, if you know a better country, why don't you go there? The sort of love it or leave it thing is, I'm afraid to say, illustrating a quite different point and reminding people of other traits in the American character and traits in American history that are not so attractive or so wonderful.
However, I'd also point out that you're right, it's lucky, but goodness, think of those people that got here.
Oh yes, look,
I mean the actual tenacity.
And it's made of oil and coal and everything that you can possibly imagine, uranium.
But still, the ability of these immigrants to come here and construct, in a matter of 100, 200 years, the most powerful and indeed diverse and stable democracy on earth.
Slightly rough on the people who are living here already. One should not forget.
To be sure.
There's a story, by the way, in
nobody's proud of that.
No one should be proud of that.
This morning about Canada's loonie heading south. That's
Pierre Trudeau takes a vacation.
No, it's the dollar. It's the Canadian dollar. On January 18th, the Canadian dollar hit a record closing of 62 U.S. cents. At one point during the day, it traded at 61.75. As the Canadian currency known affectionately as the loonie for the water bird that appears on the dollar coins continues its fall, more Canadians are beginning to worry. Some say that they feel poorer because they cannot buy what they used to buy on trips to the United States, and that back home it is driving up the cost of living by making imports more expensive. We go to Boston. Good morning, Boston.
Good morning. Thank you for taking my call. This is for Christopher. It's a comment, and then I have a question for Christopher. They mentioned about the greatest, country in terms of the individual freedom and all that. Is it possible that we have all this in here, but then when it comes to dealing with the other countries, we're very undemocratic and very, in a way, really a dictatorship? I'm an Iranian American, lived in this country for 30 years. I actually left Iran because the fact that I couldn't survive. I couldn't live under the rule of the Shah dictatorship, who was brought by the United States with the coup in 1953. Now, anyway, my question is, I was very appalled and surprised, like many other Iranian Americans, who supported, strongly condemned these terrorist attacks, and Iranian officials, especially the Khatamis, a faction of the regime, strongly condemned and offered the help to the United States to track these terrorists in Afghanistan, and even willing to spend $600 million help to build Afghanistan, compared to the United States that is only willing to pay $250 million. This mention about Iran among the two other countries that Mr. Bush mentioned about this triangle of the evil, it was very surprising. What do you think? I mean, are we going to war with Iran? What kind of a mentality you think is behind these talks?
Okay, well, to your first point, obviously, no thinking American is proud, I don't think. Or I would hope, of great swathes of American foreign policy, not just the unforgettable horror of the war in Indochina, but, as you say, the installation of gruesome regimes on populations who do not want them, and regimes that act as a gendarme for American interests. The Shah of Iran, the Pahlavi dynasty, would only be one of these. General Pinochet, General Videla. Everybody knows, I think, what I'm talking about. Yes, and of course it qualifies the idea that this is a great society, because the test is this: can a large, generous, multi-ethnic democracy also be an empire? If it succeeds in being both, it'll be the first society in history that does. 5th century Athens, which I think was a fairly impressive society, managed to get by without being an empire. Many people say the Roman Republic collapsed because of imperialism. These are serious questions that ought to be debated very seriously. Now, on the Iran point that you make about, I thought that the President's speech was very disappointing in this respect. Whatever may be said about Iranian society and politics at the moment, it's clearly a society evolving very fast, probably itself throwing off theocracy. Without a shot being fired, gradually the Iranian people are repudiating a theocratic regime. It's not fair to compare this process to what's happening in Iraq and North Korea, and it was ungenerous in the extreme, I thought, of the President not to acknowledge this fact, because it puts in a very different light the fact that there are people in Iran who are opposing this process, and many of them, yes, are doing so by engaging in covert military programs.
The President is perfectly aware that Iran, in fact, there are pro-American demonstrations in Iran every day, pro-American. He's not talking about the Iranian people, he's talking about this regime. Now, this regime is also engaging in sponsoring, clearly, disruption in Afghanistan to topple or to weaken the current regime. It is clearly responsible for that boatload of lethal weapons sent to the PLO for use against Israel. On the West Bank. It has a client state in southern Lebanon. It will soon have a client state on the West Bank. It is one of the most dangerous threats to us and to the region. I was relieved to see that the President understands that, and that we will not go after the Iranian people. In fact, I think Iran is particularly promising to capture the regime or topple the regime because the people are ripe for democracy.
Orlando, Florida, Republican line.
Well, I've got one more.
Go ahead.
Hi. Yes. What I'm going to say is probably going to be pretty upsetting to both of you gentlemen, but I'm going to be as straightforward as I can. And I don't want to be cut off while I'm saying it, too.
Uh-oh.
Do you believe